Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast, where we explore cutting-edge strategies to keep teams human-centered, drive innovation, and empower you with the tools and insights needed to help your team excel and thrive in today's rapidly changing world. Your host is Dane Groeneveld, a seasoned expert with over 20 years of experience enhancing team dynamics and innovation. Today, Dane is joined by KVJ. KVJ is the co-founder and CEO of Tuffy, on a mission to help all employees self-manage and thrive at work. A pioneer in the future of work and a tech industry insider, she previously led innovation and incubation as Chief Strategy Officer at Salesforce. She's a fearless advocate for human-positive approach to building employee experience, trust, and success with emerging technology. In this episode, the conversation explores why managers are so often positioned as both the source of workplace problems and the people most affected by them, and why traditional training rarely translates into behavioral change. Rather than framing this as a skills or motivation issue, the discussion reframes it as a systemic challenge rooted in how work actually shows up day to day. A key theme is how psychological safety shifts when people have the space to think out loud, without judgment, in moments that actually matter. At the center of the conversation is the role AI can play when it's designed to support human agency rather than replace it. The episode examines how in-the-moment AI support can help people prepare for difficult conversations, notice patterns in how they show up under pressure, and navigate complexity with more clarity. So, teamwork makes the dream work, and we're here to inspire your next collaborative breakthrough. Gather your team or put on your headphones, and let's dive in together.
Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast. My name's Dane Groeneveld, and today I'm joined by KVJ. KVJ is a friend who I met at Transform earlier this year, thanks to another mutual friend, Virginie Raphael at Full Circle. She's been in the role of Chief Strategy Officer in the past at Salesforce, and most excitingly is the CEO and co-founder of Tuffy. So I'm excited to dive into conversation today, and it's good to be back together. KVJ, thank you.
Thank you, Dane. It's so great to be with you.
So for the benefit of our listeners, like how do we get up to speed on all the cool stuff you've been doing and where you find yourself today?
Well, how to get up to speed on Tuffy in particular, I guess, this journey started, gosh, I feel like the journey started 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really the culmination of lots of experience and being on all sides of the issues of the workforce, being an employee, being a manager, being a leader, kind of, managing up, managing down, being a good leader, being a bad leader, all of the things, and learning from that and really thinking deeply about what people need to be really thriving and successful at work. But I will say a couple key experiences led to leaving my role at Salesforce and deciding to found an AI company in January of 24. And the a pivotal moment was probably 2019-ish at Salesforce, and really leading innovation and innovation teams inside and externally. This topic of how to help people work better and smarter and happier, has been a conversation, like I said, since the 90s. But pre-pandemic, 2019, we had like George Floyd's murder. We had like a lot of really stressful things happening in the world of work. We were really out in front at Salesforce with working deeply on DEI and helping to diversify our workforce, and a lot of incredible initiatives. And yet it didn't mean everything was getting solved. And it was a hard time. And the leadership team at the time asked if we would go out and explore how to make it better and what's really broken. So we studied that problem deeply. And what we really found was that often managers were at the heart of the problem. And we know people leave companies often because of managers and not because of the company. And so, there's a few things I learned then and have since learned as well. But great managers exist out there, but they don't scale and they have bad days too. And it's just really hard to do that job. And there's a craft to it. And, so if you're stressed out and burned out and stretched thin, it's just really hard to show up your best every day.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have a lot of people who are in that role who got the role because they were great individual contributors, they were high performers, they're wonderful collaborators, and then they get elevated into a role and they don't necessarily have the capabilities. And you might go to a training for a week and think like, oh, now I can be a manager, and it's just not that easy. And a lot of that learning doesn't stick. So in trying to design for that, at the time we thought about, we built what was called the Warm Line internally, which was a solution that was just a call center staffed with really unicorn, amazing people that had phenomenal managerial experience and qualities and had HR backgrounds and ER backgrounds and legal backgrounds. And we just said, like, let's have these like best in class people on call for anyone in the organization that needs some help. And we started with one population and said, like, let's really offer this in a small pilot to a group of people and see what happens. And we told them, like, when you have a challenge, you should call this Warm Line. It's completely confidential. You can get the guidance that you need. And we told their managers, hey, when people come to you, we're augmenting you with this Warm Line. So like there's a place that you can ask people to go, and please ask your people to call the Warm Line to get help.
Yeah.
And managers really liked that. It was a solution for them. And we also told them as managers, if you are struggling with something, you too can call the Warm Line and get the guidance that you need. So what was wonderful about that, we piloted it. It worked really well. People got the help they need, and we saw performance data go up. Like the retention went up, engagement went up. The people who used the Warm Line were outperforming those who did not, an improvement in performance. So highly effective. Although the challenge with that solution is it doesn't scale. So
Correct.
when we kind of wanted to go beyond the initial pilot, all of a sudden it's like, well, you really need to hire a lot more unicorns that really don't exist. And oh, by the way, like in a 70,000 person company, you could find 5 people that had those skills, but it's hard to find in general. So, when ChatGPT happened, I was like, wow, we really now could train AI on management, HR, employment law, therapy, everything that people need, and organizational wisdom, and everything that's in your LMS, and give people the guidance that they need in the moment that they need it, in a safe place that's confidential. And I'll just say, like, one other challenge that we saw was when people were struggling, often people didn't want to call a manager or HR, understandably. And where they were going is to friends and family at home. And those friends and family may be great at hugs, but they're not great at real help. And so they get the coddling, they get, the validation, but those people are not experts in any of those, areas that I mentioned. So that doesn't help you resolve your situation effectively. And so there was an opportunity, and that when I decided to start this company, found an amazing co-founder who has built 5 companies himself, and he had been working in AI for therapy as well. And so we came together, and we've been building Tough Day ever since.
That's super cool. And you hit on some really fascinating themes there, KVJ. The managers at the heart of the problem, they're both the problem, and they're also the victim of the problem at the same time. So it's a very human issue. And that learning's not sticking. I think we're seeing that in a lot of formats and conversations right now. But when you shared the Warm Line, what I just wrote down here on the paper is that it's really interesting that the psychological safety prevents us from having some of these conversations with managers, but we're very happy to have that conversation with a third party, particularly when we know there's privacy by design. And I'm now seeing that we're even more happy to have that conversation with AI. Like, I don't understand it, but humans just seem to have far more trust with this, non-human being.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple fundamental reasons why, like, there's no sense of shame or judgment from AI.
Yeah.
So it's like I can whisper it, like I can say it to an AI and not worry about what the other person is thinking about me. And the other piece of it is also from an organizational wisdom perspective, you can train the AI to be smart about your organization.
Interesting. So it understands context.
Yeah, exactly. And when we started this process, we did what we called Wizard of Oz testing. And that essentially means we had human managers, therapists, coaches, HR people, lawyers sitting around the table. And the first version of the product was just like a Google Meets where we said, you're going to come in and just chat on the Google Meet as if you're talking to an AI. And don't worry, it's going to be a little slow because our AI is actually like a whole bunch of,
people in a room.
Human intelligence. And, but we're going to do it in a chat. And what we were doing on the back end is this group of people sitting around the table would decide who's the best person here to answer next. And they would be typing. And a couple of things were really interesting. One, the humans that were using this AI forgot that it was humans. And they would tell us afterwards in the feedback, like, oh, I love how your AI makes spelling mistakes. And okay, we told you it's humans, but okay, thank you. But what we were also observing was what do humans do that's actually really valuable in delivering the right help? And as an example, if you ask a lawyer a question, you are never getting an answer. You are getting more questions, and they're like everyone that's sitting around the table was trying to figure out what's really going on here. And asking those questions back and prompting the human to think more deeply and to share more information was really highly engaging. And I think people kind of got lost in that. Like they started to open up and say more and more the way you would probably with a human therapist, right? So that enabled us to kind of see what the behavior is and design an AI with those behaviors. But also because of the power of AI and all the great content that we could put into the brain of Tuffy is what we call the AI. We could diagnose the problem and give really practical advice back to the person.
That's cool. So it's interesting because what I'm hearing is I am hearing coach, I'm hearing therapist, and I'm hearing, when you say organizational context, I'm hearing consultant too. So I've got this Venn diagram of coach, therapist, consultant, which is fascinating because traditional coaching, they shy away from consulting and they shy away from the therapy. And yet my lived experience is actually you need all three of them, because if you're only serving one of those areas, you're still getting drained and damaged and carrying baggage from the other couple.
Exactly. So yeah, like if you talk to a coach externally, they don't have all the context. We also 30% of the questions relate to policies and processes inside your organization that if you don't have the organizational knowledge, like you might ask an HR AI bot a question that knows just the piece about like what's the policy or what's the process, but it doesn't know all the human stuff, right? So, but a lot of the things that people come in that's a very human and emotional issue relates to a policy or what's available to me or what have you. So you kind of have to bring all those things together.
Yeah, which is exciting. I actually had Darren Murph on my podcast this morning, so we haven't even released it, but I was recording it this morning. And he was the one who was head of remote at GitLab. And he talks about how you need to codify a lot of things in the organization. So when I think about what you're building with Tuffy and an organization where not only policy is codified, but how we work and who you go to for what and where knowledge is, it makes me think that, that there's a huge amount of augmentation and support that can all of a sudden start showing up for managers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be consistent and accurate. And that's,
Yes.
like that, sometimes managers will just wing it and they'll just know how it worked in the last company, or they've got ideas, but actually, how it really works. And even the unwritten rules,
They start to learn, or?
well, we have some great content partners. Like, I'll just give you an example. One of them is the Band of Sisters. I don't know if you've heard
No.
of them. So they wrote a book called You Should Smile More. It's these 6 women executives who all worked at one point at Pepsi. And they've all gone on to be CXOs in companies like Peloton and BlackRock and other
Cool.
places. And they a couple of years ago got together for a reunion, and they started talking about all the things that they had experienced and all the unwritten rules that took them years to learn that they exist, and they decided to write a book about it. So that wisdom within the book, where they kind of break down, I'll give you an example, it's not just the meeting, it's the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting, and their protocols and all of that. They start to codify, what are all of those rituals and things that people don't know but are very real.
Yes.
Right. So we're working with content partners like that to bring that knowledge into the brain of Tuffy. Now, any organization, it might be a little bit different. So when we work with an organization, we have kind of a list of things that we do ask them about, and we can customize the personality, the tone, specific.
Cool.
How do you want to answer this question? Yeah.
That's very cool. So essentially you're building a way of scaling the corporate knowledge, good global practices around coaching and therapy, and it's doing it in a way that feels safe and accessible for people to just come and interact with in the flow of their work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one other thing that's unique in terms of maintaining that confidentiality and trust, which is each individual owns their own data. So a company will customize Tough Day for their organization, and when they invite their employees to use Tuffy, the message is really okay, your first stop is typically your manager, but before you talk to your manager, you could talk to Tuffy, and probably, Tuffy can help you with 80% of the things. And then when you go talk to your manager, you'll focus on the right things with the manager and use that time effectively. So as you are working with Tuffy, you log in through your company email to validate that you should have access to that database, that brain from the company, but you sign up with your personal email. And on we say on a personal device, similar to your healthcare provider, the company provides you access, and then you can talk to your doctor about whatever you want to. You can talk to Tuffy about whatever you need to talk to, work related. We will not tell you how to make chocolate chip cookies or handle other things, but work-related things come here, and it's a safe place, and you can ask anything, and the company doesn't find out, right?
Interesting.
That
makes total sense. So that's the safety driver.
It is.
And if you as an individual have that going on, could you be working with Tuffy to identify a couple of your growth edges? How you show up in meetings.
Absolutely.
You can.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One, Tuffy is building a memory of you as you have conversations, and Tuffy can start to see trends. So you might have similar patterns or behaviors that it can see, let you know that seems to be a pattern or behavior. You can edit that memory. You can say I'm sorry, Tuffy, that is absolutely not true. And you can argue with Tuffy about it, and maybe even come to an insight that actually Tuffy was right about that.
Yes.
And then there's also the vault. And so the vault is where you can add your MBTI or any personality assessments you might have had, or previous performance reviews, things that you know about yourself. So you can upload anything there, and that's, that Tuffy will know that as well.
So that helps create even more context for what might be stressing you out, or a better way for you to be asking for feedback or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
That's very cool. Do you sense either now or in the future that as AI comes to bear here with tools like Tuffy, that I'll be able to say, hey, I'm going into a meeting with KVJ. In the past, I've struggled because I don't set clarity around what I'm seeking from KVJ, and how can you, knowing what you know of KVJ, how can you advise that I set out the task? So I'm not able to look at your material, but the AI can at least know you, know me, and say, hey, the best way for you two to work together is like this.
Yeah. So how we're doing that today is that you would, in your personal vault, let's say you have the team assessments, right? Like, so
Yeah.
we work with another partner that does team assessments, and we'll say to each individual who has access to that, like, upload it to Tuffy, so Tuffy knows you and knows your team.
Yes.
But it's still controlled by, like, in this instance of me, in the context of KVJ,
Yeah.
these are the people I work with, these are their styles, this is my style, and it has that context. And then it is learning from me as I have a conversation with Tuffy about a particular person, what's going on with that person. We're seeing from our users that they will even upload emails like,
Yeah.
I got this email from this person, it made me feel this way. And, like,
What's going on?
help them understand what's going on there, and actually help them craft the response in a way that would work well.
Fascinating.
And we're it's fun. Like, a lot of, even we don't get to see the data about that. So a lot of what we're learning about the success of those moments is from people calling us and saying, oh my God, I just need to share this story with you. I had this breakthrough and, like, solved this personality issue with this colleague who now I love this colleague and we're working so well together. Or one leader was telling us, she used to be afraid to, like, open her office door. She's working in person and people be waiting outside. Like, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? And she was like, oh my God, I know it's going to take 2 hours when I start this conversation. And she said she can tell her people are now using Tuffy because they send emails that are coherent and, like, really, to the point. They come to meetings prepared. And she's like, our work together has gotten so much better that actually now I do want to spend time with them also as humans. So it's kind of interesting to see, when you fix all the work messiness, actually people enjoy each other better.
I love that because we talk a lot with guests on the show about the need for Slack and the need for mattering and human connection. But when you're under the pump and there's objectives at work and there's awkwardness about how you're working together, you're not really activated to be spending time together talking about non-work things. And so I think, reducing the misery of the work in the moment actually helps lift everyone's energy and appreciation for each other. And that's what I'm hearing.
Yes. And we're trying to find the right language for this, but we think about it as, like, the emotional and behavioral layer of your tech stack. So, like, yes, we love Slack. We use Slack, huge fans. But if you have people who are messy or struggling or, stressed coming into Slack, they can also do a lot of damage, right?
Tons.
So you've got to really, like, address the human who's using the tools at work. So that's what we're trying to do.
I had a cool experience the other day. I had my profile and a colleague's profile, and I'm a move fast, break things, learn while doing person. And this other person is very diligent, design from first principles, build things that work first time round. So we were having this clash.
Yeah.
And so I said to the AI, how do I approach this conversation that I need this thing built in the next week to this level of fidelity, without taking the task off them, like without this becoming a headbutting moment. And what was super cool was the AI was able to say, well, look, that person places a huge amount of value in designing systems that work. So you need to actually reduce the specification of the system you're asking for. And instead of saying, I want a system that does that, you need to say, I need you to build me a system that helps me work with these 10 people to discover how they want to be supported in the end goal. And so it took me back a little bit, and it made me a lot more clear in what I was asking for. And it allowed that person to hear something that gave them the agency to do it their way and to their quality standards. And it was amazing, the relief in both of us, like both of our shoulders just dropped. We're like, oh, we just had a moment of like a breakthrough right there.
Absolutely. It's funny. I started my career at Lotus, if you remember Lotus Notes, and way back in the 90s. And I had been studying anthropology and leadership. I wanted to understand power dynamics and leadership, and wanted to go into the tribe at work to understand that. And I ended up working in this space of knowledge management really before people knew what knowledge management was. But the internet was new, and we were trying to figure out like what can the internet do to really help workers do their best work. Not such a different problem, right? It was just at the time it was new technology, and a large part of what we would say, and it's still true today, is that you can do all of this stuff without the technology, right?
Yes.
Like that moment that you had with your colleague is a very human thing, and if you take the time and you have the right wisdom and kind of guidance on that, it's a very human experience. And today we can augment ourselves with technology that makes it easier, faster, get to those insights or give you that learning or knowledge like in that moment.
Yes.
And that's what's so magical about it. It is still very, at the heart of it, very human.
It is. And I'm glad you said that, because I didn't study anthropology, but I'm also just fascinated by humans and the way we behave and the way that we've traditionally shared knowledge and collected wisdom. And my fear with AI is that, it's going to reduce our critical thinking capabilities or our ability to have conflict. We're just going to be throwing, ideas from AI at each other and hoping that it works. But I think you're spot on that if you're using AI that is connected to the right materials, whether it's profiles, emails, organizational context, past conversations, it has a capacity to deliver a very human outcome, something that actually feels natural, and not something that feels contrived or manipulative. And that was my experience in that moment.
Yeah. And I think what is the intent of the AI? And not all AI is designed with the same intent. There's AI
Yes.
the intent is engagement, and it will tell you whatever it thinks you want to hear and can be sycophantic.
Yes.
Our AI design principle is agency, human agency. So like, we're not trying to do all the work for you. We're trying to help you do your best work. And so understanding you and giving you the right guidance is not necessarily to go off and get it all done. We're not going to go have that conversation for you. We're just going to make you better equipped to go have that conversation.
And so that ties back to what you said at the top of the podcast around a more effective way to learn. You learn through doing, you learn through building rather than going on a course. So it sounds like as you're using the AI, you get to build your own user manual or operating guidelines for not only for yourself, but for who you're interacting with in the organization.
Yeah, and you can practice it. I had an experience recently with Tuffy, a role-playing experience where the conversation was about workload and changing priorities. And I think we probably have all worked for someone at some point where like the priorities change so much, and it's like, oh, I want this yesterday, and then like 3 hours later I want this yesterday. And
yes,
and so I was testing Tuffy to see like what would Tuffy say in this, and I feel like I'm pretty good at managing those kind of people and having a breakthrough. But so I role played this with Tuffy, and Tuffy said, like, tell me a little bit more about the person the person who is putting these demands on you. And it's like, well, one of the things is like, I always like, there's two versions of this person. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? Like, and I would always know which version of this person I was about to get based on their body language.
Yes.
Tuffy starts describing in the role play a body language.
Wow.
And I was like, Oh my, so I start off like talking about like priorities and setting boundaries and, like trying to like protecting the team and, all of the things. But I found myself in the role play going back to, okay, fine, I'll just get it done by the end of the day. Like I was like
Fascinating.
beaten down. and and what's even more fascinating is Tuffy stopped me and noticed that my behavior changed and I stopped being effective in my role play. And it
Wow.
said, are you okay? I just want to pause the role play for a minute and check in on you. How are you
Yeah.
feeling in this moment? And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing. Like, I am not feeling very good. Like, I could feel all the stress and
Yeah.
like what it was like to be in a room with that person. And it was like, and then it gave me some great tips for like, okay, like, let's come back, let's breathe a little bit. I forget
Yeah.
exactly what it had, like a little bit of mental, like well-being meditation. We've got to like come back to grounding and then try this again. So
I love that.
yeah, so like just practicing before you go into those situations is so important, and then you'll
Yeah.
be more successful in those moments.
And I think the fact that it's thinking about whole body energies, threat chemistry, fear, whatever it is that's driving the moment. Like you can have the best plan going into a meeting and then you get totally hijacked by your chemistry 3 minutes in when that person shows up in a different way or they say something triggering. So the fact that it allows you to practice, do the breathing techniques, get comfortable with it, is
And
super
yeah,
powerful.
and be self-aware of like these are your triggers. Like
Yeah.
obviously there was something in this conversation that was a trigger, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very, very helpful. And that's the point. Like it's not going to go have that conversation and tell this person like fix your priorities. It's going to help me
Yeah.
have that conversation.
The other interesting thing that I'm noticing with AI with some of my teams is that sometimes you can't have the conversation. Like it's too triggering, but the conversation needs to happen.
Yeah.
So I've seen a couple of teammates, and I've tried it with a few teammates where you're like, hey, I asked AI this and it gave me this response. Can we talk about this? Because now you've been able to get the problem out on the table that you were too afraid to get out. And if you ask the right following on questions, I'd like to know what might ring true for you, what seems off and what's missing. Just those three questions around a small insight from AI can like get you through a conversation that you might have put off for 6 weeks in about 6 minutes. So it's interesting
Yeah.
how like written word can play a role too.
I absolutely. And so two things. One, like Tuffy will help you craft that email, right?
Yeah,
So it might analyze the conversation, the situation, and say, you know what, like these two or three points are not relevant. Like, and oh, this is emotional. This is you. This is not
brilliant.
like, don't bring that. And it will kind of structure that for
Yeah,
you, which I think is super helpful. But, Tuffy, Tuffy's going to prepare you then to go have that conversation. But if you don't feel comfortable having that conversation still, you might say, like, I can send the email,
yeah,
but I'm still really nervous. And Tuffy will suggest human intervention in that case. Like, we're not providing the human intervention, but it will talk
go
to
and
you.
bring
Like,
HR in
do
or
you have mentors? Do you have someone inside? Like, HR is there for you in these situations. Like, and
yeah,
if an organization has people that are designated for certain things, like it can guide you to the right person.
yeah,
But sometimes you do just need an advocate to be there.
totally. Yeah. No, I like that approach. I like that you're able to bring or at least recommend that a person's brought in. Do you see in the future, KVJ, that there may be a time when, as a group, we get in the room and say, hey, team, there's 5 of us here. This isn't landing for us. Let's ask Tuffy in the real time. Like,
Yeah,
could
there's
it be
6 people in the room, but one of those people is AI. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
why not? Yes. And
Because that's interesting.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess AI note takers are kind of playing some of that role today and like listening
Yeah,
and synthesizing, but The challenge with Tuffy, at least the way it's designed now, is it's an individual relationship with Tuffy,
Yes.
and that protects the confidentiality. So, who knows on the roadmap if we get to the point of saying like invite Tuffy to the meeting to,
Wow.
to hear everybody, and everybody's
Yeah.
agreed to that. But I think organizations also don't want to have too much of that information, right? Like
Yep.
it's, we're designed for safety on both fronts.
Yes.
There are conversations that you probably don't want to have the organization involved in.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine it takes a certain kind of leader that's willing to invite the AI into the meeting too.
Yeah, I guess so. I hope where we're moving is really, the augmentation becomes normal and
Yeah.
we're all super powered. We get some capabilities we didn't have. We all have things, like I think one of the things for leaders in general is like, sometimes you lead and sometimes you follow. And
Yes.
knowing when to lean out and let somebody else lean in or encourage someone else to lean in is important as a leader. And then why not have AI lean in on some of those things, right? I guess that's what we're asking everyone in organizations to do today is really think about how can AI complement you?
And the thing I really like about AI being framed in the way that I hear you're doing with Tuffy is that traditionally a lot of leadership development spend was targeted at the top 10% of leaders, the high potentials, which was both, at times narrow-sighted, short-term oriented, and not very effective.
Yeah.
But now we're augmenting all team members so that they can bring their brilliance forward that traditionally we're not getting. So you've got to think that teams become more activated, that companies get more innovation, they get more human energy. And to me, that's exciting for teams.
Well, and to develop, absolutely, and to develop every single individual in your organization as a leader, no matter what your level,
Yeah.
your level of experience is, to be self-aware, to be self-reliant, to solve problems, to show up and know how to collaborate and
Yeah.
lead, and sometimes yes, follow. The model, it's funny, like when I think about the Hollywood version of like, what is this model? I think about the Avengers, right? Like they're all
Right.
these superheroes. They have, no one's perfect, but they do have superpowers. And what's cool is like, there's a mission. They all figure out how to work together. Like some people
Yeah.
lead the battle sometimes and follow, but like they don't depend on a manager to tell them what to do, right? Like
Yes.
they're whole people trying to make it work, and they whatever, slay the dragon, whatever the task is. But I think that's where we're moving, and I think that's especially what Gen Z wants, and they're used to that model. When they go play video games online, they're meeting people from all over the world and joining teams and doing
Correct.
missions together. Like that's how they work. And organizations should realize every single person in their organization is a leader and on a leadership track, developing their leadership and superpower them that way. And that doesn't mean we aren't going to collaborate. Of course we are.
It's very organic. Jane McGonigal talked a lot about the power of video games and like, she's awesome. And it's like lowering stakes, allowing you to come in and do work with people that's within your zone of competence and build confidence as you go, creating human connections around traditional obstacles. Like there's so many reasons that video games work.
Yeah.
And to your point on Gen Z, it's not that we're gamifying work, but taking some of those behavioral conditions and then putting the agency in the hands of our team members to kind of, chart their own path of growth through the organization. It's super powerful.
Yeah, it's funny. I always say it's games, not gamification. Like
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's funny. My son, when he was probably like 10 or 11 or so, he introduced me to a game called It Takes Two. And
I haven't seen
have you heard of this? Oh, well,
No.
Your kids are young, but when they get older, it's a good one.
I get it.
But essentially, it's a game where you come in and the narrative is these parents get divorced, and it was kind of like a little bit of a dark program.
Yeah.
But they get shrunk, and they need to work together. The two parents have to work together to solve all these challenges. And so, he played one character and I was the other character. And like, he was like, okay, mom, like now what you need to do is go pull that lever and I'm going to pull this lever. And we couldn't do it all. Like we had to do all these things together. And I was like, this is magic. Like it is communication. It is like learning what needs to be done and deciding who's going to do it and trusting each other and and I'm pretty bad at video games. So like putting up with my video games and getting through it. And we just had a blast. And I think like, gosh, I'm so optimistic about Gen Z and what they're going to bring to the workplace.
Me too. Me too. Well, we've covered some cool ground today. So starting there with like managers being the heart of the problem, not being able to scale, the warm line example from when you're at Salesforce, I thought that was super cool. It helps, but it can't scale again. So as you now then move forwards into, bringing AI to bear, I keep framing this whole, model of coaching and therapy and organizational knowledge put together so that people actually have somewhere safe to go to work out how to tackle, not just the tough moments, but like the big opportunities, the exciting moments too.
Absolutely.
And I love the way you describe you and Alberto having built this with human agency at the center of the design principle, even to the point where you shared like AI can actually sense when you're having some tough feelings and either suggest a breathing technique or go and find another human to intervene with you. I just find it super encouraging. Having been a fairly late comer to the whole AI shift myself, I'm seeing just so much more realm for possibility and positive creation of organizations from developments like this. So thank you for sharing today.
Thank you, Dane. It's my pleasure.
And if any of our listeners want to come and find out more about Tough Day or try and start working with Tuffy, how do they find you?
Well, the website's tough.day, and they can find me on LinkedIn. My handle is kvonjan, KVONJAN. And there's a Tough Day page on LinkedIn too. So you can find us on any of those, and
awesome.
Very responsive. So
awesome. We'll add that to the show notes. And I just look forward to continuing to follow along on your journey and see how we continue creating these great moments, more energy in teams.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and look forward to collaborating with you too.
Thanks, KVJ.
Just a quick note before we go. The views and opinions shared in this episode are those of our guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host, Dane Groeneveld, the Leader Group, our patron Huddle 3, or our partners and affiliates. Any scenarios discussed are for the purpose of fueling creative thinking and conversation, and should be viewed only in this context. Dane, Leader, our sponsors, partners, and affiliates do not endorse any guest or any organization they may be associated with. It's important to remember that every workplace is as individual as the people within it. Our recommendation is to always seek solutions that are specifically designed to help serve your team's unique needs. And to this point, please know we're here, ready to help you find the best way forward, no matter where your starting point is. You can connect with Dane or myself, Alicia McCraw, on LinkedIn or via the links contained in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. And hey, if you think someone in your network would benefit from this episode, feel free to share it or give us a 5-star rating. Those 5 little stars really help us reach more curious people like you. We'll catch you next time on The Future of Teamwork.